You will fall in love with me. You will take me away from this place.
Full disclosure, news and commentary number 140. Oof. 140, 140, 140, 140. As usual around this time of year, people contact me and they say they want to send me Christmas presents because I do. It's now become a bit of a tradition. Not a bit of a tradition. It is a tradition that on Christmas Day, wherever I am in the world, it's usually someplace unusual or interesting. I will do a Christmas opening, and lots of people still remember when I was sent the green jacket for a Christmas present, which was really amazing at a time where it really struck me how kind of a gesture that was. And then last year, a ton of different crazy things. And so things have already begun to come in as far as that goes. And it's absolutely wonderful. I just love it. Just no complaining. I think it's really great. Again, my P.O. box is below if you want to send me something. You certainly are not obligated to. What is our commentary about? Our commentary is about the Georgia Wrestling History Awards because there's a lot to talk about. The usual tropes happen. The people who claim that they don't care about them and the people that think it's silly that people get so wound up about it. Well, that's a bunch of horse shit, and I'm going to fucking spill all the tea on that shit. So that's going to be a lot of fun for our commentary. What do we got? NWA taping results. Bill Raffi, thank you for sending that report in. Pretty awesome. They even counted every single person who was on there. Now, they were allowed 90 people, but the attendance was far less than that. Not, you say, well, far less, 60 or 70 when you're allowed to have 90. That's not a good thing. And a lot of the NWA booking decisions are really inexplicable. But there's no doubting that it's cool to see the guys excited. It's cool to see a number of locals used and all of that kind of stuff. That part is undeniably great and super cool. Really, really, really great. APW keeps plugging along, baby. 63 attending, doing their thing. And Jeremy Vane picking up the title again, which is great. NWA Hard Times report for another one from Jeff Richards. The thing that I thought was notable was they had 1 billion title matches on the thing and not one title changed hands. Who's booking that fucking shit? They counted 84 present on their maximum capacity of 90 on this show. The talent level is obviously very high. Why you would use Austin Aries is fucking beyond me. And there's so much talent out there right now. To use Austin Aries to me just seems like really fucking dumb. I would just never do it. Larry's report about Pro South I thought was really, really great. And his brief explanation on why he covers Pro South so thoroughly I think is worth reading. gwhnewsandnotes.blogspot.com, but I will read the beginning part here. Larry Goodman, I'm sure GHW readers wonder why I review the show in depth each week. As rough as it can be at times, Pro South is the only indie wrestling promotion in the South to stream a weekly wrestling show, perhaps in the entire U.S. It is also the closest thing to Memphis TV wrestling from the 80s. Witness the segment that closed this episode, if you will. Long arcing, nuanced story like Pro South tells are few and far between in today's indie wrestling. Weekly TV gives Pro South the latitude to tell them. Yeah, wrestling. I think it's why Pro South has been sort of included in the family. I would imagine that an award or two is coming their way, directly or indirectly, this year. And it's a great story. And again, Larry really gives a shit about the wrestling. I think, well, I'm going to talk about this more when I talk about the awards in general. But make no mistake about it. No one gives a fuck more than me and Larry. We care about wrestling in the state. For all the slings and arrows thrown my way about at first, where it's like, you don't even live in Georgia and blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to give you a little insight of my contribution to the awards themselves. And yes, a lot of that is going to come across as bragging, but it's really just to let people know. A lot of the people that you guys put stock and faith in fuck around with you and they don't think shit about you. Whereas anybody who's seen me in action, whether at IWE or any of the other shows that I've attended or contributed to, not a person who witnessed it would say, Steve doesn't know what he's doing and or Steve doesn't give a fuck. All of them would go like, God damn, Steve can fucking do his thing and Steve's got a fucking sharp mind and Steve really gives a fuck. And the legion of wrestling people who contact me constantly to get my viewpoint on a thing or my advice on something or for me to find out some information for them would tell you the same. People have noted that as people continue to try to undermine me, that I tend to not do the same. And the reason I don't do the same is because I don't have to. Because I have something of value to offer. And people see that. And the people that don't see that today will see that. That's my philosophy. And so far that philosophy has worked out pretty fucking great. West Georgia Wrestling Report from Rob Rod. And again, as Rob gets more and more comfortable writing these reports, you can his reports become infinitely more readable. It's just a really great thing. That's just my general take on Rob Rod. But his report itself, he lists the referees. He estimates the crowd at 150 to 160. Certainly, that's a good number for them. Really good stuff. And his final thoughts thing about Frankie Valentine's blood going everywhere. And, putting over J-Rod and Simon Sermon being there as well, of course. Action Wrestling Report. Larry was really high on this show. Really high on this show. Did I pop that they called this show Bangers Only 2? I did. I fucking popped. Of course I popped. And it really seems like a really, really great show. Really good stuff here. We got Anthony Henry in the mix, AC Mack really being emphasized and all of that stuff. Really, really great. Georgia Wrestling Federation did good numbers. They wanted me to let you know. 100. And then WrestleMerica did 175, according to Rob Rod, who wasn't going to be able to get the report out in time, but he wanted to make sure that you knew about it. Larry reporting as well on the health department issuing a warning in Indiana about a deathmatch show. Yeah, motherfuckers. Drew Blood's novel came out. I have a lot of reading to do soon, but at some point I got to catch up with that as well. If Drew Blood wants to make sure I can get a hold of a copy, I will review the fuck out of that thing. It's what I do. What are other newsworthy items? Let's take a look. Oh, man. Andy Ripley being in the top 200 for the LGBTQ list. This inspires me. It obviously meant a lot to Andy. It meant a lot to Irving. It meant a lot to a lot of people. The fact that we have a top black wrestlers list, the fact that we have a top LGBTQ list, the fact that PWI does now a top 50 tag teams. They've done it for 2 years in a row now. The Young Bucks were the number one tag team this year, by the way. And they do a top women's list, and they still do their PWI 500. Scott Hensley puts out his lists. Larry puts out a top 10 here, there, and everywhere. I haven't done a P list in forever, but I need to go ahead and do that. And Rob Rod has taken a crack at making some lists as well. People love that shit, and I think it's really important, and I think that we're at a real turning point in the wrestling business, where now the debates center on, the WWE. They've done this good job of sort of incorporating more black wrestlers and giving them positions of prominence, and pressures on AEW to do the same. I think that's fucking great. And just really happy that, my God, the changes that have happened in, let's say, 10 years are really shocking and really surprising, and really lend themselves to the good long-term health of pro wrestling. And that ultimately is a great and positive thing. So it just pleases me so much. Here's something that I thought was really interesting. Because I saw a bunch of debate about, what is CM Punk a star? Booker T saying he's not as big a star as Triple H was before Triple H got married, all this kind of shit. And people, again, this is all subjective stuff. But for people that may not be aware, CM Punk was the fucking dude. And you're like, Steve, I don't know if you could, okay. Even though this makes it so I might not be able to get full disclosure up in time, I'm going to put this up anyway. What is this? Right? First, let me mark the time, 11:21, so it's easier for me to edit. What is this, Steve? This is a graphic of here's the graphic of CM Punk's pay-per-view 2013. He took on The Rock at the Royal Rumble. Then he took on John Cena at WrestleMania. Or no, I'm sorry. He took on John Cena on the prominent Raw of the year for the winner to face The Rock at WrestleMania. Then at WrestleMania, he took on The Undertaker. At Payback, he took on Chris Jericho. At Money in the Bank, he was one of a group of guys for that Money in the Bank, who also included Sheamus, Christian, Bryan Danielson, Rob Van Dam, Randy Orton, and Kane. At SummerSlam, he took on Brock Lesnar. Not only did he take on Brock Lesnar at that SummerSlam, that match went 25 minutes, and it is regarded, along with the match that Brock Lesnar had with Kurt Angle, where he botched the shooting star at the end, of being the two best matches that Brock Lesnar has ever wrestled. At Survivor Series, they took on the Wyatt family, and there he is with Bryan Danielson. And then at TLC, he takes on all three members of The Shield. Again, Jon Moxley / Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, who, have achieved a little bit of success in this wrestling thing, in a 3-on-1 handicap match. Oh, and by the way, CM Punk won that match. The 3-on-1 handicap match against The Shield to cap off his pay-per-view year. So yeah, the guy's a big fucking star. I don't know why that had to be, but it's probably a good time to segue into the commentary, the awards. I'll just say this off the jump. The ones that are crying the loudest about the awards and how they don't matter and how the guys are emphasizing them too much and stuff, like Nigel Sherrod, I went back when I saw that whole thread where I think it was off of a Matt Sells joke that Matt Sells made about, like, baseball player, he should have been campaigning to win Player of the Year on Facebook, sort of making the joke that a lot of people are campaigning for the awards. right? And that inspired the usual idiots who come out and declare that they don't matter, like Nigel Sherrod. Well, so and then Huckabee confronted both Nigel Sherrod and Matt Griffin about this. And went back and forth, and Matt Griffin just sort of deferred, said, yeah, you're right, Huck, whatever. But obviously implying that he didn't really know. No, I'm never campaigned for the awards, blah, blah, blah. So I went back and looked at old chats that I had with Nigel Sherrod, who in 2012 and 2013 blew a fucking gasket because I had written a full disclosure article to tell you how long ago this was. I'd written a full disclosure article when I had nothing to do the awards or really with Georgia wrestling history. Just putting out there like, hey, here's the people I think are the leading contenders. And he blew a gasket publicly because I did not list him as one of the people who should have been announcer of the year. And then privately blew a gasket again. This guy who says the awards don't matter and these guys make too much out of it fucking threw a pissy shit fit in public about it and then privately came and said, oh, I guess I shouldn't have done that publicly because the awards don't matter. But it mattered that I wrote an article back before I had anything to do with the awards where I failed to mention him. By the way, I failed to mention him because he was most prominently the ring announcer for Rampage, and it was the year that Rampage closed up shop. So for 9 months, basically, he wasn't doing it. So why would he be up for announcer of the year? But the award mattered enough because what did he really want? Acknowledgement from his peers, right? And Matt Griffin, who is going to sit here and pretend that he hasn't bucked to be considered for Booker of the Year privately year after year. I don't know what the fuck to say about that. Now, he can take the position now that I realize it doesn't matter, but to pretend that it never mattered and he had never been bucking for the awards is fucking ludicrous. It's just he could either rightfully or wrongly maybe perceive the fact that action doesn't get as much attention as it should. That's one thing. But to act like he never gave a fuck about those awards is asinine. Fucking lying. It's lying. That's exactly what it is. Am I excited that more nominations have come in earlier than ever before? Yes. Am I excited that the guys are actively competing, that you got Tyler Culprit and Ace Haven making their claim for Feud of the Year, and then Austin Tower immediately does a show with Jeter at WrestleMerica and go like, this is how many leagues we've done it in, this is how many matches we've had together, we're the Feud of the Year. Fucking great. Do I think it's amazing that for the first time in memory, if we had a Rookie of the Year category, here are the people that would be up for it. Nathaniel, right? Rose Gold, Carly Bravo, Hunter James, and probably a host of others. In fact, if I had my druthers, I would replace the Woman of the Year category with that this year. Because I don't think there's any viable women beyond Danny Jordan. So obviously we're probably going to keep the category, and Danny Jordan was going to win, and she probably should. And the only other person who I think who would be honestly up for it is Reka Tahaka, who Larry made a passionate argument with me. I was just like, but can we really say Reka Tahaka? And he's like, yes, and here's why. And he brought up Championship Wrestling of Atlanta, which brought me to this. Championship Wrestling in Atlanta is really going to change the game because a lot of guys are doing that show. They're really getting to show their stuff. They've got a television presence. And obviously, there's some kind of connection there, either unofficially or otherwise, between they and AEW. Because a lot of people who have showed up on AEW Dark show up on Championship Wrestling from Atlanta and vice versa. And that's awesome, is it not? What are my contributions to the awards? So in the last 2 or 3 years, I decided the awards are a great place to start. As far as my mission to make wrestling in the state a better thing from my position. So why was a committee formed to go through the nominations? Which was, by the way, my idea. 100 fucking %. Right? Because people would load would fucking front load fucking nominations, because it used to be, well, the ones that got the most nominations tended to be the ones that got in a category, which is fucking horseshit. So that I was like, we need to form a committee and not announce publicly who it is, though most people have figured correctly that Larry and I are on it. Good boy. Which is why most of the stuff gets geared towards being sent to me and Larry. Makes sense, right? That committee was formed so people couldn't ballot stuff. Many groups in the past had attempted to ballot stuff where they would just put in so many nominations that it was like, well, this particular person got 25 nominations. So even though they didn't really fucking do anything that great, I guess they felt obligated. Well, fuck, I was like, fucking obligated nothing. We're going to have a committee. So that way nobody could ramrod any individually thing through. But we would have an intelligent discussion about who are the 5 or the 3 people that should be the nominees and why. And we deliberated about that process. The committee alone changed the game because it made it so people really were, that the nomination really was an honor, because it really passed muster. Not only did you have to get nominated in the first place by one of your peers, and by the way, there are some worthy people that at the very least should have got a nomination in the last 2 years, but nobody nominated them. Let me make that clear. Yes, there are groups or individuals that should have been up for an award, in my opinion, that even in the committee, we were like, what about blank? It's like, yeah, well, did they get a nomination? And then the answer was no. It's like, well, we can't. That's one of the fucking few rules that we absolutely have. So if you really give a shit about making sure somebody is up for a nomination, nominate them. Dumb fucks. The process is there for you. Other changes that I had instituted. We now go all the way to the end of the year. Stuff like AWE's Show of the Year, back when they used to run that, would take place on like December 27th. And it wouldn't really get the consideration. Now, that's not the case. Because of COVID last year and all that other nonsense, it's like, let's just let this run towards the end of the year. Then we'll put the nominees out at the beginning of the new year, have the voting take a few days, and then we'll be able to do the awards. So that's how we do it now. And it's something that makes sense, and it's a change that I instituted. The inclusion of categories that made sense, splitting up announcer into announcer and commentator. These are all discussions that I started. I give a shit about this stuff, right? Are we going to ever modify the committees? Very likely, right? Because what we're looking to do is to get a group of people who really have a vested interest in making sure the right people are nominated. And that doesn't mean the right people who I think. It's the right people who we want a variety of opinions from people who know what the fuck they're talking about, actually know the scene, actually care about the scene. These are the requirements. Let me address a couple other things, because there's been motherfuckers trying to fucking instill some kind of thing about me being kicked off of the committee because I get paid by IWE. Do I get paid by IWE? Absolutely. To run their locker room? Yes. And I do it. Yes. And I promote them on my site because of that as well. Yes. Cool. But there is no rigging. This idea that I've seen fucking dumb shits from KLT saying, and so if so-and-so isn't nominated or doesn't win, it's rigged. There is no rigging, dumb fucks. The fucking people vote. Your peers vote. And, by the way, more stringent requirements on what constitutes a peer in the wrestling business that's able to vote, that's me. I'm the one who got the fucking nacho fucking sellers and the security assholes fucking taken out. You are not a fucking wrestling person. Sorry. And this idea of leagues that try to have everybody, the ticket taker, the fucking janitor, and you know the chick that does some hair and makeup for the guys fucking getting a vote, took that shit out. That doesn't mean that everybody who's not a wrestler, referee, or manager can't fucking vote. We take other things into consideration. But this notion that groups would have of like voting down their ticket line, that's the shit that we're trying to stop. I've never been an advocate for fucking down the ticket voting. Even when I was with PCW, said this before, but I will fucking say it again. The wrestlers themselves would go, guys, we need to make sure we're voting as a block. And I would say, fuck no. I would say that. No. And I've never filled out a ballot down a fucking ticket. And this idea that I would be fucking biased is ridiculous. One, I do not vote. Do I have biases and things that I believe and things that I think? Absolutely. And I'm very vocal about those. And you will probably get what that is. The notion that motherfuckers who should know better are saying like, yeah, like he advocates for fucking exotic youth. Yeah, they're fucking great. And if they should be one of the nominees for fucking tag team or group of the year. Absolutely, I believe that. So the fact that I've said that out loud means something? Fuck it. I've also said other shit. Joe Black should be Wrestler of the Year, by my estimation. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I think Ricardo of motherfucking Mucha Lucha should be up for Promoter of the Year. Does somebody want to argue with me about that? Haha, you're welcome to. I'm sure Ricardo's too busy fucking swimming around his fucking money that he's made on those shows like Scrooge motherfucking McDuck to care. But I think that award is bullshit if he's not on there. I will also say that if Gary Lamb isn't on there for Promoter of the Year, it's bullshit as well. Who was the first person to propose the very idea that Dylan should be Booker of the Year or should be nominated? Let me think back. That was me. When no one else even fucking considered it, I was the first person to say it. What now? Because I might feel differently now. Now I'm biased, but I wasn't biased before? Interesting. Facts. I give a fuck about Georgia wrestling. It's why I tend to talk about it. Facts. There are a lot of people who pay me for my advice. And not every one of those motherfuckers do I think deserves an award or a nomination for an award. They can attest to that. But yeah, I do have a vested interest in the Georgia scene. That makes me less qualified? What? Because I know what the fuck is going on? Okay, motherfuckers. I'll keep playing your game for a little while. But first, let me talk about my other contributions to the awards. Streamline the process. Made sure the process was as fair as possible. Creates excitement and hype about the awards, gives the guy a focal point to look on. Maybe the problem is this, because I wanted the awards to be taken out of the hands of the entrenched, canonized powers that be, and really have this idea that people in Georgia, if they were the true best in a particular category, had a chance to get nominated and win. In other words, I dropped the average age of the people that gave a fuck about those awards, probably 20 years. But old fucking bitter fucking people, hate to break it to you, these young guys are the ones that are carrying this shit right now. Hell, when you look at the fucking bookers, they're fucking young men. And Todd. And that's fucking exciting. It's exciting that there's going to be people that won awards in a category last year that may not even get nominated this year because a lot of other people have stepped up and risen up, as much as that person may have fallen down a little bit. And that's a good thing. Like I said, the fact that I could name a whole fucking category of people that could be up for Rookie of the Year this year is incredible. Because there are years where you can't really come up with one or two decent names. For Most Improved, Skrilla, Will Carter. I mean, there's a shit ton of guys in every fucking category. And I just give a fuck about the categories where you don't have a bunch of fucking people. Kicking them out and getting some categories in here that fucking matter. And anybody can make themselves viable for an award. And so the question is, what the fuck are you guys bitching about? I want to be up for an award, but I just can't do as many shows, or I can't, You can cut a promo. You can have that great match and make sure it's recorded and get it up there. This notion that you can just hang back and be acknowledged. I'm fond of giving advice on this shit, right? Advice like, take the pictures. Advice like, fucking be aggressive about what you want. Here's the other bit of advice that you can really fucking use. You gotta fucking seize this shit. If you spend more energy mulling over why things don't matter, instead of striving, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Except for you probably should fucking do something else with your life. Because if you think wrestling isn't about trying to achieve and trying to win awards and trying to win title belts, yes, this shit is not a competitive sport, which makes fucking things like the Georgia Wrestling History Awards that are voted on by your peers even more meaningful, not less. Because there is no true world championship to win. It's something that's assigned to you. But the perception of your peers that you're the best at what you do, that's very real and very meaningful. And in case you think it's not, please listen to the award show, which is one of the most, if not the most listened to show that we do all year for Tipping Point. For Tipping Point. And hear the people when they're accepting the awards. Have motherfuckers cried? Yes. Have motherfuckers broken down emotionally because they knew what that meant and that it meant something significant to them? Yes. And have the people who are trying to downplay it now displayed similarly large amounts of emotion, but in a negative way, pissy behind the scenes to me about them? Yes. So fuck them. It's okay to want to fucking achieve. It's okay to want some kind of milestone or marker for the fucking hard work that you're doing. It's not only okay, it's preferable. And yes, it's a risk. I know that risk. Fuck, of course I thought I should have been fucking Booker of the Year every goddamn year I won. And then I heard something dumb that one of the fucking wrestlers said recently of like, well, once Steve won that Booker of the Year award, he stopped giving it. What the fuck are they talking about? Anybody who's seen me at IWE or at any other place where I've done my shit, you know what they won't say? Steve doesn't give a fuck. I do give a fuck. And so, yeah, those awards are going to keep going. And they're going to keep getting better and better and better. And I'm going to keep supporting the men and the women that fucking are striving to get it. And I'm going to keep streamlining it and attempting to make it better. And I'm going to throw my opinions out there. And sometimes they're going to happen. Sometimes they're not going to happen. But at the end of the day, these fucking awards are happening. And by the way, getting physical awards for it, that's something else that's pretty cool. I may have had something to do with arranging that as well. So save the crying for your fucking mom, because Georgia Wrestling History Awards are going to happen. And if you think that motherfuckers doing their shows this weekend and in the next 2 weeks don't have the awards in the back of their mind when they're doing shit, or that are pissing and moaning about like, oh, I think we had a great year in spite of what some people... If you think that doesn't have anything to do with awards, you're crazy. And you know what? That's okay too. Because starting in January, there's going to be nominations up for each one of the categories. And then people are going to vote, and it's your peers. And the people that win those awards, it'll mean a lot to them. And for the people that don't win, the old classic, I'm going to reject this thing before I can be rejected by it. I see you, dickheads. And I get it. I'm used to dealing with fucking emotionally frail, fucking anger deflecting motherfuckers. I've been involved with pro wrestling since 1993. Oh my God. That means in a couple years, I'm coming up on 30 years of this shit. And I still fucking love it. And I love many of you. This has been Full Disclosure.